Let's see what Tom Switzer has to say on the round table.
Emily Rodder, wasn't she wonderful? She was my guest this morning for our Sunday roundtable, and with so much going on overseas and in federal parliament, we've got plenty to talk about. Joining me to discuss the events of the week, a terrible terror attack in Barcelona, we had Pauline Hanson's burqa stunt. Of course, we had that citizenship crisis. That's never ending. What is it now? 6 members of parliament and counting? Let's turn to our panel. Jacinta Carroll is Director of the Counter-Terrorism Policy Centre at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Welcome back to the program, Jacinta.
Good morning, Tom. Good to be with you.
Georgina Downer is an adjunct fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs in Melbourne. She narrowly missed out on the Liberal Party pre-selection in Goldstein. That was won by Tim Wilson. Good morning, Georgina.
Morning, Tom.
And Tony Walker, he's now adjunct professor in the School of Communications at La Trobe University. He previously has a long career as a journalist and a foreign correspondent. Welcome back to the program, old boy.
Yeah, good morning.
Now, listen, we're going to talk about this terror attacks from the outset. Of course, Barcelona is the latest attack of these ISIS attacks, deploying vans and other heavy vehicles to plough into crowds. Jacinta, security cameras, bollards, fences, is that all we can realistically do to stop all this?
Well, there are different layers of security, and they're probably the ones that are most obvious to people. But as we've seen, say, with the Sydney terror plot to blow up airlines and so on, it's actually all of those partnerships around the world, the intelligence gathering, and very importantly, information coming from our community. That was really critical to stop any terror plots that happen in Australia and actually same around the world. But another one that's really important is there is a sense of some despair in a lot of the commentary around the Barcelona attack. The thing saying, we just can't protect ourselves against a mad person with a vehicle. Well, we can if we remove the motivation for them. There's a group now that is calling for these things, and is giving people money, tactics and guidance and targets. So it is very important that we remove that impact of ISIS.
Yeah, well, Georgina, you're from Melbourne. I mean, following the Bourke Street Mall attack, there were bollards up in parts of Melbourne CBD. And remember, with that Bourke Street Mall attack, I think something like 6 pedestrians were killed. It wasn't strictly a terror attack, but it had the same effect. I mean, do you agree with having bollards in place to protect pedestrians?
Yeah, I think that's the expectation, and Malcolm Turnbull today is announcing a crowded places strategy, which actually he launched, I understand, after the Nice attacks in 2016. So I think the public expects there to be a response here. I think the general feeling is in Melbourne we go about our daily lives, we do not feel unduly threatened, but we do want to take precautions, and the bollards are, they're a tragic reminder of what happened in Bourke Street, but the reality is that anyone can get in a vehicle. What was very frightening, though, about Barcelona is how coordinated it was, and that sort of increasing level of sophistication in Barcelona, but what we saw in Sydney, the thwarted terrorist attack to bring down the Etihad flight, shows that increasing level of sophistication of these returning foreign fighters or people who are receiving direction from Islamic State. So it's something that is, I think, really putting a huge amount of pressure on our security services.
Indeed. Well, Tony, you've lived in many parts of the world. You were the Financial Times correspondent in China, the Middle East. I think you worked for the Film Review in New York. So you've had a lot of time overseas as a foreign correspondent. I mean, what other options do authorities have?
I listened carefully to what Jacinta said, and I think her proposition was you've got to attack the sponsors of these acts of terrorism at their source. But of course, what you might also say is as ISIS unravels or it's pushed out of its strongholds in places like Raqqa in eastern Syria, then that organization will seek other avenues to attack Western targets. And the problem we have, quite frankly, is that we are involved in a long war against Islamic terrorism, and many different means will have to be employed to combat it. There's no simple solution to the problem, and I fear that these sorts of attacks that we've witnessed in Barcelona and Nice and Berlin, of course, in recent times, and in London, have become part of a pattern, and these will persist. So it puts a high premium, obviously, on intelligence work, among other things. And what shocked me particularly about the Barcelona attack, I guess, is that this terrorist cell, numbering more than a dozen young men, had gone, well, completely undetected, had not appeared on the radar screen of the Spanish intelligence, and that was an ominous development to me, I have to say.
Tony, it's interesting, you know, in a way what you're arguing here is that one of the unintended consequences of liberating these Sunni towns from Islamic State jihadists like Mosul, Raqqa, is that it could actually, we could see an intensification of jihadist attacks in the West. That's what you're saying in a way, isn't it?
Well, absolutely, and I think we might have to go back further than Mosul and Raqqa and other places to the decision to launch the war, or the precipitate decision to launch the war in Iraq, which has had all sorts of unintended consequences, including opening the way for Sunni extremists to form ISIS and other such groups, the Al-Nusra group as well in Syria and in Iraq, and it helped to provide a platform for these groups to form and recruit and launch these attacks in the West.
And they're given this low-tech nature. I mean, this is what's really perplexing. It's a highly effective tactic of using these vehicle attacks. I mean, Jacinta, is there an effective intelligence strategy that can be used? I know we've talked a bit already, because you've got authorities. They're much less likely to intercept planning communications, for example, or equipment or bomb ingredients.
Yeah. So one of the things that there's been a lot of attention on recently is the use of encrypted communications. And while, again, that might look like something that can't be affected at all, there's some really good work being done by telecommunications providers, many of whom are based in the US and other countries that have similar laws, similar views on human rights and so on, to try and just change the balance in favour of intelligence in favour of public safety, so that you limit that, limit the easy transfer of funds. ISIS at the end of 2015 had $5 billion in assets. And a lot of what we're seeing now, whether it's in Barcelona, in Sydney, and very much so in Marawi in the Philippines, is that hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases millions of dollars, are being funneled to create those uprisings and plots and attacks throughout the world. So clamping down on financing is important as well. But Roy, I have to totally agree with Tony in terms of this push out into inspired but also directed attacks in Europe. Certainly that ISIS has called for that since 2014, and it's called almost exclusively for that since the Mosul offensive began in late last year. So it has reinvented its propaganda to say, look, the promised land is no more, our so-called caliphate has gone. It's up to you now to keep up the fight where you are. So we are in for that long war and a dangerous period. But you know, it's interesting. I've worked with the countries and police intelligence around the world, and everyone is doing an extraordinary amount of work together and see this as a common problem. So there is a lot of effort going on. But one other really important thing that Tony talked about was what happened after the 2003 conflict in Iraq. And one of the things is that the Iraqi government didn't bring its full population in. So all of these countries, ourselves included, have to keep that focus on who might support these, remember they're our citizens, and bring them close.
So the sectarian Shia government in Baghdad was more interested in seeking revenge against its former Sunni tormentors rather than building a nation. We'll get to Hanson in a moment, but Georgina, on that point, I mean, Tony's not alone here. The campaign, the war on terror, the campaign against Islamic State since 2014, in some respects you could argue, far from draining the swamps of Sunni jihadists, as George W. Bush said, we might be replenishing them, or are we overlooking the ideological roots of these Islamic State jihadists?
Well, I think the latter, actually, Tom. I think these people disagree entirely with the whole foundation of the West. They want to spread a completely different ideology, a political form of Islam, developing a caliphate. They have complete intolerance for unbelievers, and the price you pay for not being a believer is death. The way they treat women, the way they treat their slaves, we've seen the images. It's absolutely atrocious. This is an ideological battle, and I mean I don't think just dismissing it all as, oh well, it was the fault. It's actually the fault of the Western foreign policy decisions. Is to give these creeps a free ride. This is something that has been heralded since way before the war in Iraq. I mean, Samuel Huntington wrote about this in the late 90s. This clash of civilizations is something that experts have been warning us about, and we're now facing it. Really, it's full frontal.
My guests are Georgina Downer from the IPA, Jacinta Carroll from ASPI, and Tony Walker from La Trobe University. Let's move to Pauline Hanson's burqa stunt in the Senate chamber. Here she is speaking about it on radio station 2GB.
Is it extreme? Yes. Is it getting my message across? I hope so. I hope it's creating debate, because we've had overall probably more than 55% of Australians want to see the burqa banned, and I think no better place to start with the Parliament. And why I've done it in the Parliament also, last year when I was first elected, conversation came up with the President, and I said there was a dress code for the Parliament. He said no, people can wear whatever they want to. So hence the whole thing is, I'm hearing people all the time, why can they wear the burqa in the banks? Why can they wear the burqa here? Security reasons.
Yeah, well, some people respond to Pauline Hanson, like George Brandis, for example, that a stunt like that could actually undo the work of security agencies in fostering cooperation with the Muslim community. Jacinta, are those critics right?
Well, it's very interesting. One of the silent heroes in many ways of the 13 successfully disrupted plots in Australia is the Australian Muslim community. So we have, unlike reports of disenfranchised Muslim communities in places like the suburbs of Molenbeek in Brussels and so on in Belgium, in Australia, the Australian Muslim community is very well integrated. It's a multicultural country, and they've been critical in defeating plots, and that's because there's a good relationship overall with that community and law enforcement and intelligence, as with every other community. One of the problems with this, we can understand Senator Hanson is speaking to her constituents, and there's certain support for what she's done, but there are a couple of different issues. One is she has said that she was trying to raise issues of security. That may be, but there are different ways of doing that, and I think the Attorney General spoke to that very strongly. Well, that you've actually vilified a sector of the community. One unintended consequence as well is that by talking just about the burqa, it's almost forcing a defensive posture on those who want to be accepting, and also those in the Muslim community who don't wear burqas. They're not very obvious in Australian society, and they're not a very significant issue. Certainly there's something, when I talk with Muslim women associations, those from South Asia, those from Southeast Asia typically don't wear a burqa, and many don't wear any head coverings because it's not culturally part of their form of Islam. So for them, they feel like they're being dragged in to defend something that they might not actually support. A lot of feminist Muslims are concerned because this is a form of control used in certain countries, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan under the Taliban. So it's kind of creating an unhelpful form of the debate. The debate about security is always useful, but as the Attorney General said, there are avenues for doing that.
Tony Walker, what do you think?
Well, what I would say, Tom, is that George Brandis redeemed himself somewhat in the eyes of liberals, small L like you. Now,
turn it up, come on.
and maybe even me. But just going to Jacinta's point about the burqa, I mean, I've lived in Muslim communities for very long periods of time. I spent 10 years as correspondent in Egypt and in Cairo. I personally find the full burqa confronting. I think headscarves are part of the Muslim heritage, and I have absolutely zero problem with the hijab. So you know, the point Pauline Hanson was trying to make was, I think, was, you know, unacceptable, and it was an unacceptable stunt in the circumstances. And for the life of me, I can't understand why she was even allowed into the Senate wearing that garb. And I think it reflects poorly on the President of the Senate, quite frankly. But the burqa is worn by a very, very small, the full body covering is worn by a very small minority of Muslim women.
Okay, we're on the
Australia.
upload limit. Back immediately.
In perspective,